Have you ever wondered why you constantly feel an uncontrollable urge to respond, justify, explain, or prove yourself? We live in an era where noise has become the norm. Everyone is speaking, shouting, wanting to be heard, but no one, absolutely no one, truly wants to listen. Worse still, no one can stand silence because it's uncomfortable. Silence exposes, it reveals, it offers no salvation. Now tell me, how many times have you reacted impulsively? How many times did you regret speaking too much? How often did you need to take a stand make you feel weak? This is no coincidence. It's conditioning. You were taught that speaking is strength. Silence, on the other hand, means consent, that if you don't react, you're weak. They lied to you. One of the most dangerous thinkers in history saw it differently. To him, true strength is not in words. It's in restraint. It's in self-control, in silence filled with intention. Because silence, if used wisely, is a weapon, one of the most deadly. He said that the will to action, that life force that drives people, manifests not in those who shout the loudest, but in those who remain unshakable in the face of chaos. While everyone drowns in words, the true master observes, waits, calculates, and when he chooses to speak, the world listens. This isn't just about nature. It's about you. About what you've avoided facing within yourself, the fears you experience when you're silent with your own thoughts. About how your need to speak to be approved can keep you weak, dependent, manipulable. This is a blunt, direct, but necessary conversation. So before we continue, I challenge you, stay with me until the end, without breaking the silence that's beginning to form inside you. Because what you hear today may not be what you're ready to hear, but it's exactly what you need. Nietzsche was not just a philosopher. He wrote not to please, and certainly not to be easily understood. He wrote as if throwing knives, not to kill, but to awaken. And one of his most powerful yet often misunderstood ideas is the will to power. Many think it's about domination over others, imposing external control. But Nietzsche spoke of something much deeper: self-mastery. In his view, true strength is this, that you must not react. Yes, to not react, that is the key. In the modern world, power is associated with quick actions, immediate responses, constant readiness. But Nietzsche knew that this is merely a reflection of an enslaved mind where impulses dominate, where the need to prove oneself in others' eyes rules. The true Übermensch, the overman, is someone who has transcended this compulsion. He doesn't respond automatically because he's no longer a hostage to his vanity. He doesn't need to explain himself, defend himself. He already has enough. Reacting, in most cases, is surrender. It's a demonstration that someone else has access to your emotions, that they can unsettle you, trigger an immediate reaction. And nature teaches us that succumbing to reactions reveals our weaknesses, our wounds, our insecurity. On the other hand, silence is a shield, but not a passive one. It's a shield of presence, firmness, and reason, knowing that true control is internal. Want to have power? Learn restraint. Learn to observe chaos without getting caught up in it. Because while others spend energy trying to win battles that shouldn't exist, you strengthen yourself in silence. In this space of restraint, impulse is mastered and true power is born. But here arises an uncomfortable question. Why is it so difficult for us to keep silent? Why does noise tempt us even when it destroys us? In the next part, we will explore the psychological roots of silence and what exactly noise is trying to hide. Have you ever noticed how silence bothers people? How a simple longer pause in conversation creates discomfort? How the sound of emptiness becomes unbearable when we are alone with our own thoughts? It's no coincidence. Silence possesses a brutal psychological power. It reveals. And deep down, people fear what might be uncovered when everything around them falls silent. In the absence of noise, there are no distractions. Without distraction, what you hide from yourself begins to surface. Your insecurities, fears, guilt, frustrations, everything that daily noise helps you sweep under the rug. Talking too much, constantly reacting, these are forms of anesthesia, and you may not even realize it. Modern psychology explains that our minds are shaped to flee emotional discomfort. We react. We talk. We fill every space with words, music, notifications, anything that keeps us from facing the abyss of inner silence. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And what do we resist most? confronting our own emptiness. Nietzsche knew this. He understood that modern humanity is sick, not from excess pain, but from excess distraction, from being lost in empty discourse, shallow opinions, ego battles that only serve to feed superficial identities in silence. This illusion is broken. It forces you to face who you truly are, without veneer. That's why true silence, rooted in awareness, is so powerful. It takes courage. Silence is not passivity. It's resistance. It's rebellion against a world that has taught you that your value lies in what you say, not in who you are. Silence disrupts this cycle. It paralyzes the social game. It restores your sovereignty over yourself. But here's the key: one silence is not enough. It must be directed, channeled. It must be strategic. In the next part, you will understand how silence can be used as a weapon, not to attack, but to dominate, to conquer. It's time to learn the power of strategic silence. What makes a silent fool different from a silent master? Intention. The former silences out of fear, the latter out of mastery. And here lies one of the harshest truths about power. Those who do not master their silence will never master anything. Nietzsche did not see silence as an escape. For him, silence was a move for superiority, a way to affirm the will to power. The silence of the Übermensch, the overman, is not timid, withdrawn, or insecure. It's calculated. It's a tactic. He doesn't fall silent out of submission, but because he already understands that those who speak all the time sell themselves cheaply. And those who react too quickly reveal their emotional map to the enemy. Let's clarify. In confrontation, those who speak the most are at a disadvantage. They explain too much, justify too often, show too much. When used correctly, silence becomes a mirror. The other begins to speak for you, project, destabilize themselves. They try to fill the void with words but only reveal their fragility. Have you ever seen a leader who doesn't need to raise his voice but still dominates the room? Someone who, with a single glance or prolonged silence, makes you rethink everything you were about to say? That is the power of strategic silence. It creates tension, and tension is the territory of influence. You don't need 1,000 arguments when you control the timing and space of conversation. When you manage the rhythm, decide when to speak and when to stay silent. In social psychology, this is known as nonverbal status communication. People perceived as powerful speak less, pause longer, and weigh each word as if it were gold, because it is. They don't try to convince. They make others doubt themselves. This is not a gift. It's a technique. And nature understood this intuitively. Silence is not absence. It's amplified presence. Most people fear loneliness as if it were a sentence. They avoid it, mask it, anesthetize it. They fill every minute with stimulation, every space with company, every silence with noise, because being truly alone means facing oneself without distraction. And for many, that's unbearable. But nature saw loneliness differently. Not as punishment, but as a privilege. A sacred space where the spirit is strengthened, where individuality ceases to be a draft and begins to become a masterpiece. He who cannot endure solitude does not love freedom, he wrote. And this phrase cuts deep because deep down, everyone claims to want freedom. But true freedom requires strength that few are willing to develop. The courage not to depend on others' approval to exist. The courage to be whole even without witnesses. The silence born of voluntary solitude is not empty. It's alchemy. In this space, you begin to hear what life's hustle never allowed. Your own voice, your true needs, your unresolved anxieties, your deepest desires. Everything that routine and society have silenced or you've avoided yourself. Loneliness is the laboratory where the true self begins to emerge. Stripped of masks, disconnected from external expectations. Nature believed that the highest spirit is recognized by its ability to endure isolation, because in isolation, it does not break. It reveals itself. It does not weaken. It reconstructs itself. The ordinary man flees from loneliness because it confronts him with his internal chaos. The strong man seeks it because he knows that only by diving into that chaos can he discover inner order. And there's an important detail. It's from this solitude that strategic silence, which we discussed earlier, gains real depth, because it's not just about remaining silent to seem powerful. It's about having already won internally, because there is no longer desperation for acceptance, visibility, or response. Silence is no longer a shield. It's an extension of your presence. But there's something even deeper. When silence comes from conscious solitude, it not only protects but heals. It purifies. It removes the unnecessary, dissolves what was trapped, reveals what was hidden, and everything noisy dies of exhaustion. But at some point, this force intensifies. Silence becomes not just refuge but language. A silent scream that echoes louder than any word. In the next part, we will explore why silence at certain moments speaks louder than words, and how to make it your most powerful message. If what you hear resonates with you, you will find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadows. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and provides tools for deeper self-understanding. The link is in the pinned comment. There are moments when silence is not just the absence of sound. It's absolute presence. It occupies space as an invisible giant, suffocating the environment, disarming egos, tearing masks. It imposes itself without raising its voice. And when that happens, no discourse can oppose it. Because while words can be challenged, true silence is incontestable. Nietzsche understood this with brutal clarity. He knew that there is a force in omission that destroys more than any argument. Well-placed silence is a denial, an affront, a verdict. When you choose not to respond, you're not just abstaining, you're saying with brutal elegance that the other does not deserve your energy. This is not arrogance. It's hierarchy. In a world where everyone desperately seeks to be heard, those who choose silence automatically elevate themselves. They don't compete. They dominate. And that's why well-used silence is one of the sharpest expressions of psychological power. Think of a debate. When someone falls silent in the face of provocation, the other often becomes desperate. They try to poke, prod, force a reaction. Because silence reveals what most fear, that the other is at peace. And there's no more powerful weapon than serenity in the face of an attack. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back the other's lack of control, their absurdity, their anxiety. But be careful. This is not about silence out of omission or cowardice. It's about knowing that you have the power to destroy the other, and choosing not to because you already have. And this victory is invisible to shallow eyes but deeply felt by those who try to hurt you. Silence also has another role. It amplifies what is said. A word placed amidst a long silence carries more weight than any lengthy phrase. It's like a precise strike after a long pause. It impacts more. It leaves a bigger mark. Nietzsche said that words are merely symbols of relationships between things and us. Silence, in turn, is a symbol of the unattainable, that which lies beyond language. It's the territory of those who no longer need to justify themselves. There's a final stage where this power becomes most refined. When silence is not just a weapon, but an identity. When it becomes your way of existing in the world, mastering the art of silence, not as someone hiding, but as someone who has transcended the need to prove anything. And this is where the essence of what nature calls true strength resides. A power that is not displayed but felt. In the last part of this journey, we will reveal what it truly means to live as someone who carries silence as a symbol of power. And we will ask you one final question, one you may never have the courage to answer. Are you ready for that? Silence is not for everyone. It demands something few are willing to develop. Inner solidity. Because to remain silent while the world screams is an act of war, against the ego, against the addiction to approval, against the impulse to react to everything. And that's why most fail. Most talk too much, react too quickly, reveal too much, desperately trying to prove a worth they have not yet found within themselves. Nietzsche knew that those who constantly need to explain have already lost. Those who need to defend themselves against everything have not yet made peace with anything. True power is silent because it already exists. It requires no approval. It does not rush. It does not need to convince. When you reach this point, when silence ceases to be effort and becomes your natural state, something changes. People listen differently. They look at you differently. They feel your presence without a word. This is not mysticism. It's psychology. It's energy. It's mastery. But don't be deceived, this path is lonely. It requires swimming against the current of urgency, haste, and collective hysteria. It demands enduring the discomfort of emptiness until you realize that emptiness was filled with you all along. And that's when everything shifts. You stop reacting impulsively and start acting with intention. You speak less, but when you do, you change the environment. You stop chasing to be heard because you understand that those who truly have something to say don't need to chase an audience. Now, tell me, will you continue to get lost in the noise, or will you learn to use silence as a weapon? Will you keep giving your power to anyone who provokes you, or will you regain control over your mind?